not only personal power, but insight on how we can change the trajectory of our lives. A gentleman I've grown to know and love, Mr. Willie Jolley. Good morning, sir. How are you doing?
I'm incredible, and grateful to be on with you, Oscar, and all my friends there in Houston, Texas. Good morning. And for those who know and have heard me when I was there or have heard me on the radio or on my XM show, I always start the same way. I have only just a minute, only 60 seconds in it. It's forced upon me. I can't refuse it. I didn't seek it. I didn't choose it, but it's up to me to use it. I must suffer if I lose it, give account if I abuse it. Just a tiny little minute, but an eternity is in it. Greetings to everybody.
I absolutely love that. I love that. Willie Jolley, amazing. And I have to say, I watched several events that you have gone to, and you unquestionably electrify the room. Before we get underway with our discussion, I want to introduce a gentleman that is by my side here that is equally excited to visit with you, a motivational speaker in his own right, a gentleman that I came to know through a meeting and have been impressed by his contributions. Mr. Darren Brown, good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Oscar Hines, and good morning, Mr. Willie Jolley. It is certainly a pleasure, and all I can say is that I'm envious to the point that I study, that I learn, that I listen, and I'm going to learn more today. So it's a pleasure and honor to have the opportunity to share airtime with you, sir.
Well, honor to be on with you as well. Nightclub actor, one of the top-rated nightclubs, and it was doing great. I bought a new house, had a new car. In that time, I also got married and started a family. Things were going great. People would line up at 7 o'clock for the 8 o'clock show, 9 o'clock for the 10 o'clock show. It was packed out every night, and things were off the chain. Well, one night I came in, the nightclub owner said, "We want to talk to you after tonight's show." I said, "Great." Went in his office that night, and I told the guys, "Man, they want to talk. We're finally going to get our raise." Went in his office that night, he said, "Well, you know, we love you. People love you. You're a big hit here. The problem is we decided we got to get a better return on investment. And the only way to do that with a full nightclub is to lower the cost. And the band, the entertainment is the biggest cost. There's something else that's filling up nightclubs, that's having people stand in line, that's a lot cheaper than a band. We're going to go with that. We bought a karaoke machine." I said, "What?"
Karaoke.
We got standing when it came across my desk where the Washington, D.C. Public Schools was looking for someone with a background in counseling, and I had a theological degree with counseling, and a background in entertainment, to start a new program to help eliminate or downplay the drug issue in America in Washington. That was during the crack cocaine epidemic of the 80s. And I saw this, and someone had recommended me, and I talked to the people, and I said, I'd be happy. I didn't know what I was going to. I had to pay my mortgage. I had to pay my rent. So I took this job during the summer where it was called Positive Images with the Washington, D.C. Public School System, taking young people from D.C. Public Schools and creating music and drama programs, and in between them I'd give little connectors between the plays and the skits and the music and the dance. And then at the end of the summer, the kids went back to school. They asked me, the school system asked me to stay on, and as part of my job, I would go around and give little speeches to schools about staying away from drugs. And that's when I found what I was supposed to do, what I was born to do.
Radio, we have an opportunity to sort of connect here with some great motivation. Dr. Willie Jolley is live on the air, and so Darren Brown, Dr. Jolley, I have to tell you that Darren's in the studio. He was sitting down. You made the man stand up, take off his coat. So tell us, Darren.
I had to get up, right? Because, see, listen, Dr. Jolley, there's a couple of things that I'm listening to from your story.
Yes.
And one of the things that people don't understand and we don't understand well is truly what process is.
Yes.
See, sometimes people look at our success. Somebody would look at your success and say that, hey, this just happened overnight. Where did this guy come from? But they don't know where it started off, and your success comes from your service.
Your success comes from your service.
Absolutely.
You know, absolutely. And I tell you're right on, Brother Darren, Brother Brown. I tell people in my speeches that service is the rent we pay for our space on this earth.
Wow.
And I share a story about the power of service and the power of excellence that I learned when I was in Okinawa. I was speaking for the U.S. Marines, my second tour of Japan for the U.S. Marines, speaking for the families of those deployed, for the workers on the base, for the people all over the island of Okinawa. Well, after 2 weeks, it was time to leave Okinawa and went to the airport. The lady at the front gate, at the front door of the airport said, "Can I see your ticket?" I handed her my ticket. She said, "Oh, we've been waiting for you." Now, I'm thinking really good because I'm the speaker. Maybe the shuttle was about to pull off. All those ladies we had met that day ran to the edge of the bus and said, "Hold up." And they bowed and said, "Thank you for letting us serve you." And I learned a valuable lesson that day. When I get to do what I do, whether it's 5 people, 50 people, 500 people, 5,000 people, and I would suggest when each one of you who's listening get to do what you do, we should not see it as work. We should see it as service. Because service is the rent we pay for our space on this earth. So I'm grateful. You're absolutely right, Brother Brown, that it's about service and that the success is built out of our service. And it was so evident. Let me tell you one last thing that I'll give you a back of. Martin Luther King said something powerful in his last speech at Ebenezer Baptist Church before he was assassinated. He gave a speech, and he said in this speech about the new definition of greatness. And he said, if you want to be great, you need to know the new definition of greatness. And that is that if you want to be rich, that's great, that's fine. And if you want to be important, that's fine. But the true new definition of greatness is service. He said, you can be great if you understand the power of service. See, you don't have to have a college education to serve. You don't have to know about Aristotle and Plato to serve. You don't need to know about the second theory of nuclear dynamics to serve. All you need is a heart filled with love and a soul generated by grace. And you can serve somebody.
KYND Radio, we are talking to the great Dr. Willie Jolley, and in-house, in studio with us is motivational speaker Darren Brown. We are having an amazing conversation about how we transform the setbacks into the comebacks, how we create opportunity where there's none.
What are you dreaming in your mind most readily for your legacy? Someone asked me in an interview, I was doing a radio show, and somebody asked me in an interview, what's your biggest goal? What's your biggest goal, Dr. Jolley? And I said, oh, that one is easy. I've thought about that in great length. My biggest goal is that 100 years from now, some child will walk into a living room and look at a picture of me and my wife and run up and kiss that picture and say, thank you, great, 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 great granddaddy, for what you did back in 2017, 2018, 2019. I know you're not here now, but I'm just grateful what you did back then so that I could have an education, we could have a business, we could have a house, we could live certain lifestyle. Thank you. That's my biggest goal, and I will never get to see it. But that's the way we got to be thinking, and that's where the service comes in. So thank you, Brother Brown, for sparking that in me. You fired me up, Brother Brown. You fired me up.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You're listening to Dr. Willie Jolley on KYND Radio. Connect with us, KYND Radio on Facebook. You can now watch the live stream or at KYND on Twitter. And, of course, if you have some comments or questions for Dr. Brown, you can reach us live here in the studio at 832-230-5592. Again, that's 832-230-5592. Darren, you had a response to Dr. Jolley here.
Dr. Jolley, so I was mentioning those points that I got from what you spoke about. One of them was process. You already talked about hope.
Yes.
Here's what you did
process.
as well.
Okay, you got to have process. I like that.
Yes, process. So you have to have hope. Here's what you did as well. You capitalized on an opportunity. Many times we don't even notice what the opportunities are because we don't feed ourselves enough information to understand when the opportunities come by us.
Right.
And
so
also
I like that. Let me make sure I got that. Process, and then you capitalize on the opportunity that was there that you took advantage of.
Yes, and you also had hope.
Hope.
But you also made a discovery.
I made a discovery.
Then when you discovered, you further uncovered, and as you went along your journey, because see, journey is part of the process, you developed. Man,
Okay,
I'm listening to this, and this is incredible.
Uncovered and developed. Come on, man.
Discover, uncover, and develop. Yes, that's what we do.
Yep.
That's what we do. Because we have to discover it first. It all starts with the discovery. And sometimes when you discover it, it's still hiding, and you got to do a lot of work. You might have to bring in some heavy equipment. You might have to invest in some resources. You might have to get some mentorship. You might have to invest some monies in your personal development.
Come
you
on
might
now.
have to get around
You
some
gotta invest in
like-minded people.
yourself.
Absolutely. Jolley, can you tell people how you are still developing today?
Woo, come on, somebody. So let me make sure everybody knows what I'm repeating. You know, I'm a radio show host, so I always like to give people a repeat of the pearls that drop from people's lives. And so he said you got to first discover, then you got to uncover, and then you got to develop. Then he asked, what am I doing to develop now? I told somebody not long ago, I said, one of these days I'm going to be a good speaker. They said, what? I said, yeah, one of these days I'm going to be a good speaker. They said, but you've been named one of the top 5 speakers in the world. You've been inducted in the Speaker Hall of Fame. You've been named one of the motivational, inspirational speaker of the year by the 175,000 members of Toastmasters. What are you talking about? I said, yeah, but I ain't nowhere near what I'm going to be when I get good. Because I keep working on it. I keep working on it. I keep working on it. Michael Jordan said that talent is God-given, but ability takes work. Come on, somebody. Woo, you got to work on it. You got to get up in the morning. You got to make a commitment that you're going to outwork the competition. 2 ways to get to a goal. Mentors. Brother Brown, you'll like this one. They're mentors and mistakes. Now, both will get you there. One just gets you there with less headaches, heartaches, and knots upside your head. It's better to learn from a mentor where the knots and
it's like darkness. It's like darkness, and you light a candle. The candle will remove the darkness. It cannot exist in that space. So that's really the key.
So
that's really the key. It really is the key.
So, Dr. Jolley, as I'm listening, there's a couple of so you mentioned mentors and mistakes.
Yes.
I certainly subscribe to that because I do believe, and just to paint a bigger picture for the audience, mentors is intentional learning. Mistakes is accidental learning. And here's how that works. Just so the audience can get a great picture of what that is.
Yes.
If you have a mentor like a Dr. Jolley, it's a great opportunity that you will learn within a 2-year time span versus mistakes, which is accidental learning, which might take you 15 years.
That's right.
I often ask people this question. I say, well, let me ask you a question. How would you rate your parenting skills on a scale of 0 to 10? Just having a conversation. When we're talking about development, we're talking about growth, and we're talking about empowerment. How would you rate your parenting skills on a scale of 0 to 10? And they say, well, I think I'm a 9. I think I'm an 8.5. I said, well, what are you measuring that against? Why? Well, I love my child to death. I said, well, but what happens when love is only the beginning?
Yes.
I said, there's so much more beyond that. I say, now, if you're just loving your child and you're learning for the first time how to be a parent, and for the first time you have a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, and you're trying to learn on your own, I say, but what if you invested the help of mentors who've already been through this process? I said, what if you read books on parenting? What if you went to parenting classes? Would that help you to become a more effective parent at a much sooner time versus making mistakes that are going to cause damage and dysfunction? So sometimes we don't understand the process of mentors versus mistakes, which is intentional learning versus accidental learning.
Mm-hmm. And that is powerful. Mentors are intentional learning. Mistakes are accidental learning. One can take you years, and one can take you a few months or a few days.
Absolutely.
You know, it's like reading a book. You can get a mentorship from a book. That's why I encourage people to get my books, get my audios, get my videos, because it might take you a few days to read a book. And what you've done there is you've done a brain transplant. In those few days, you've done a brain transplant. I read books. I try and read a book a week. And so I'm trying to get a brain transplant from somebody who might have taken 2-3 years to write that book, and I can read it in a few days and put that information in my brain. You know, I listen to an audio. I listen to a
We
DVD.
are talking about how we transition from the dark to the light, how we change doubt into hope. The power of hope is irrefutable. When it connects, everything starts to happen, and the universe starts to cooperate in this beautiful dream that we call life. Isn't that right, Darren?
That's absolutely right, because we're talking here, we're on the natural network, and that's what we're talking about today, right? And we're talking about empowerment and how we transfer this from our mind and apply it into our lives. And there was something that I was studying just a little while ago, Dr. Jolley, and a gentleman by the name of Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich, and something that he shared in the book that's incredible. He said, we are too familiar with the term impossibility. We are too familiar with terms like limitations. We get too familiar understanding, and we have so much knowledge about what cannot be accomplished and what the rules say cannot be done. So he said, we have to have a success conscious, because when we have a success consciousness, it allows us to think and dwell on possibilities. However, when we have a failure consciousness, all we think about is impossibilities, limitations, and structural confines. So, yes, we got to fix our mind and get our minds in the right place, because it all starts in the conception of our mind.
When you open to the field of possibilities, the realm is infinite. When you're limited in possibilities, the realm is finite, and therefore the decisions, the desires, the goals are finite. Isn't that right, Dr. Jolley?
You know, I had no idea that this was going to come up in this conversation. This is synchronicity. This is things working in unison. This is when the divine meets the possibilities. Now, in our staff meeting this morning, my staff told me I'm doing an interview tomorrow night for a big national confab online, where we're going to talk about the principles from the Napoleon Hill books. It worked again for you to bring up, Brother Brown, about Napoleon Hill. I had no idea. That's what we talked about at our staff meeting this morning. We've got the package. We give away the book. Go get it. It changed my life. It changed Les Brown's life. It changed Joe Dudley. Let me tell you what Joe Dudley, many people know Joe Dudley, who Dudley Hair Care Products, who's celebrating his 80th birthday, by the way, May the 20th. If you call his office, you can go to the event. It's going to be a big
principles that you infuse in there. And I hear your voice every time I read your words, and I have to tell you, it's been a companion. And during any difficult times, there's always been some great advice to draw from. Now, we just have a couple of minutes left before our next program comes on. We're going to be talking sports here in a while. So I want to see if you all can give us just a few more pearls of wisdom here. Let's ask Darren to give us a minute or so, and then Dr. Jolley, take us home.
So I won't even take a minute. I'll just share this, because when I speak to people, when I speak to groups, when I speak to clients, when I speak to some of my coaching clients, I always talk to them about mindset. And one of the words that I always talk about is failure versus success. Failure versus success. We have to reframe what failure is. So sometimes people say, I've failed, and they use ED, and that means that's past tense, which means I'm finished, I've given up on this process. And we know, Dr. Jolley, as we talked about, the 3-foot rule would happen to R.U. Darby over in Think and Grow Rich. But when we reframe the word failure, instead of saying that I failed or it was a failure, let's say that we experienced failure. This is what I want you to say in the listening audience, that you experience failure. Because see, when you experience failure, that means that's a learning process. And if you reflect on what you went through, all failure ever is feedback to say you didn't take the right direction or you didn't take the right actions. Then once we get that feedback, that now allows us to analyze and gain insight so that we could re-implement.
Yes.
So let's reframe failure. That's what I got, Oscar.
One more time, Brother Brown, what's your website?
www.dynamicleadership.expert. www.dynamicleadership.expert. Thank you, Dr. Jolley.
Thank you.
You know, that's how we do. Here's why I keep throwing it at you, because somebody helped me when I wasn't well known. Somebody blessed me, and if we keep it going, and then once you become one of the top speakers in the world, and you flying around on your private jet, just remember this little thing I shared with you, that we keep helping each other, and it really does make a difference.
Absolutely.
So I'll close with this. I know we only got. I'm a radio guy, so I know how the clock will come up on you, and you got to stay clear and true to that clock. So first, I want to thank you, Oscar, for having me. I want to thank Paris Ely for introducing us. I want to thank everybody there at KYND. I'm coming. We're going to make this happen.
Yes, you are, sir.
We're going to make this happen. And I will close quickly was my favorite story that I close every speech with, and I'll close it with y'all. I was a new speaker. I had no books, no tapes, no radio, no television, no credentials to be a speaker, struggling to keep the lights on, the phones on. I'm getting hung up on my face on the phone calls I make. Nobody wants me. Finally, somebody one day says, we'll give you a shot. They fly me down to Orlando, Florida to give me a shot to do the speech. I did the speech. They gave me a standing ovation. Then they gave me my check. I was ecstatic. I went home on that plane feeling good. But I pulled the check out the second time to get that thrill one more time and got depressed because I realized the money was allocated. It was already gone. And I owed the car folks, the light folks, the water folks. I loaded all these bills. I didn't know how I was going to make it. And so I'm getting depressed. An older gentleman across the aisle, he senses I'm struggling. He strikes up a conversation. He tells me he's a minister. He lectures about health and wealth every day in a different city. I said, really? He said, yeah. Then we talked for a few minutes. He encouraged me. Then he changed my life. He said, young man, how old do you think I am? I said, I think you're about 60. He said, young man, I'm 88 years old. And my best is yet to come. And in that moment, everything shifted. If an 88-year-old man can see that his best days were in front of him, if he can just have the hope, the optimism, to think that his best days are not behind him but in front of him, what did I have to whine and cry and complain about? And I went home with a new attitude. And I started making sales calls. They say no, I say next. They say, I'm not interested in what you guys say. You're not the right one. Thank you. And I keep making calls. And eventually somebody would say yes. Wow. And so 25 years have gone by. I've been inducted in the Speaker Hall of Fame. Named one of the top 5 speakers, but it's just the tip of the iceberg of what is yet to be. And I'm saying to you and everybody who's listening, without a question in my mind, your best is yet to come. Your best is yet to come. Your best is yet to come.
Yes.
Come on, somebody. Let's
yes,
go.
Let's
slay some dragons.
Nice.
Let's go take the mountain. Let's go make it